recording this live. We are having our first ever live webinar for Inspiring Mummy Club, which is very exciting. And we've got as our guest today, Rebecca. You're very excited, Rachel, thank you. We've got as our guest today, Rebecca Lockwood. And Rebecca's here as our, wait for it, multi-passionate entrepreneur who has a niche in business and mindset. So Rebecca's story, she's going to share a little bit more about that in a moment. Oh, hello, Jen. Nice to see you here. Thank you for coming. And anyone else who's out there, if you just pop on and say hi, it would be nice to know who's with us today. We are recording this to go in our member site as well as into our Facebook group for later on. So any questions you have or anything you think we've not covered, it would be really helpful for you guys to post in the chat box so that we can make sure you get the most from Rebecca's expertise and my experience as well, all about how to create a fantastic morning routine. And I've been kind of saying how it can supercharge your life, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well, Rebecca, in a moment. So Rebecca, thank you so much for coming and being here with us today. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how mornings have changed your life. Start with where you are now, what you've been doing, and how having early morning starts has shaped things for you.
So yeah, thank you for having me. It's so exciting to be here and do this. And no matter how many of these I do, I always feel nervous.
It's adrenaline rush, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Completely. So like you said, I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur who specialises in business and mindset. So I work with women across the world to up-level their lives and their business to be successful, whatever success looks like for each individual. And my life didn't always look like this, but in 2017, I achieved massive success so I like to say like it's priming myself for success. In 2017, I became a #1 bestseller in a multi-author co-authored book,
which is fantastic. I mean, there's not many people who can say that they are an Amazon international best-selling author or co-author.
Yes. I was appeared in Huffington Post because of that. I was on a growth accelerator for the business. I moved into my dream apartment, which houses a spa, so it's literally like having a swimming pool at home. And yeah, I spend a lot of time now with my daughter and I work around her. But it didn't always look like that. And it was the prime of success, the mindset, the morning routine that had a massive impact in the way that my life looks now.
So just obviously this is Inspiring Mummy Club, so just tell us a little bit about your family setup, Rebecca, how old your daughter is and what's going on for you family wise at the moment.
So my daughter's 2, she's 3 in June, and then I'm due again in March.
I like this. Very pregnant.
I'm due in 7 weeks to have my baby. And I always believed that you couldn't have it all. Like I always felt like it had to be one or the other. And I was recently being interviewed on a TV channel, and I was asked about being a mum or being an entrepreneur. And I said, what do you mean, or? Like, why can't you have them both? Like, what? Like, I think the question was something around, did you sacrifice your career to be a mother? And I was like, no. You can have it all, you really can. So yeah, I've got my daughter who's 2, and then I'm due again in 7 weeks, and it's definitely not slowing me down. If anything, it's driving me to do more and be more for them.
That's fantastic. So I'd agree with that very strongly, in that for me, not necessarily being an entrepreneur, for some people that label doesn't work, but creating the life that you want and doing the things you want to do, for me becomes even more important because I'm a mum. I know that there were a few years where I wasn't doing things that mattered to me, and what that meant for my emotional and mental health. And actually it then affected my physical health, because these things kind of filter through our whole bodies. And that when I stepped into that whole sort of vision of doing the things I want because I'm passionate, what it's meant for me is that I've been able to show my children that you can do things even though you're mum. You don't have to stop just because you've had children. And I know you're getting prepped, obviously, for 7 weeks' time. So how's that going to change things for you, do you think?
I did, when I had Eva, I had a business then as well, a different business, and I got pretty bad postnatal depression after having her. I also had to have a C-section, so things were quite up and down. I was also diagnosed shortly after with OCD after having my daughter, and that kind of, I don't know if anybody knows or has experienced OCD, but it's not usually what you expect it to be. For me, it's not about cleanliness, and for me it was like scary thoughts continuously. It's like repetitive thinking, and so that was a really hard time. And so I decided this time round to kind of put the things in place in my business and in my life to be able to have that time out, you know, to be able to just be me and look after me and put myself first. Because I think as mums and as women, we always put other people before ourselves. And I completely disagree with that. I think we need to be first, because when we're first and when we're happy and when we're thriving, everyone else will thrive as a result of that.
Wow, I think you know that I completely and utterly agree with that. And it's a nice little segue there, Rebecca, because for me, one of the major things that shifted in my life, there's been many shifts, but was starting to take time for myself. And I used to look at my life and say, but there's no time. There is literally no time in my day from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed where I can really do something for myself. And then I'd encountered, well, what if I did something in the morning? So we're talking today about creating a morning routine for yourself. Tell us what that is for you and how that's changed your life.
Okay, so at the beginning, I'm not going to lie to you, I don't do it every day, because I just don't. Maybe I do it every day, but not as a morning thing every day, because I am a mum and I am at home with my 2-year-old. Thankfully, she's in nursery 2 days a week. But on every other day of the week, I have her, and I'm still doing everything that we do around it, which everyone else is as well. But at the beginning of 2017, which was kind of when my success really propelled, she was really good in that she didn't get up in the morning until like 7:30, and so I got myself up at 5:30 in the morning, and I'd sit and I'd go through. I was very strict with myself, and I know we had this conversation before about like how Tony Robbins will jump in the plunge pool and then do a meditation and then do affirmations, and at that time, I could go through that process as vigorously as that. I had a cold shower, I went to the gym, I read, I did affirmations, I meditated, I visualized, and my success, I literally achieved my 5-year goals within 5 months. And then my daughter started getting up earlier, and and I must admit, at first, it annoyed me. We're all human, and it would be frustrating, but then I quickly realized that she is my why. Like, she is the reason why I'm doing what I do, and so I learned how to make it work with her in it, and especially with the pregnancy, because I was so sick and so exhausted, there was no chance I was getting up at 5:30 in the morning. And so I find myself now, what it consists of is I do every morning, the first thing I'll do is I'll journal. And it wasn't easy to start. I'm not going to lie. Everyone said to me for years I should start journaling. But it was only, and I say to everyone now, you should journal.
And what is journaling for you? Because I have different ways that I do depending on how I feel. So what is it for you?
Yeah, so I've just got a notebook and I'll just write. So the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I just get my pen and paper. I leave it by my bed. I get up, I wake up, I sit up, I have a drink of water, and I write in my book. And if my little girl gets up and comes and sits with me, then she gets up and comes and sits with me. And if she wakes up and comes and sits on the sofa, I'll bring it downstairs on the sofa and I'll do it whilst I'm sat with her on the sofa. And I make myself do it around what I'm doing, because it is possible to have a cup of tea whilst
absolutely. For me, one of the things that's really strongly resonating with me is when I started first doing, I'm going to talk a little bit about Hal Elrod and The Miracle Morning, which I think you've read as well.
Yes,
that was the thing that kind of got me thinking, actually, maybe mornings are the time. And I did propel myself straight away into doing a committed hour every single morning for 30 days, completely supercharged everything in my life. And then the more I was doing it, and it has become a regular thing for me, but I do, like you, drop in and out, because some nights I've not slept, some nights I have, some nights something's happened, or I'm not well, or one of the children isn't well. But I know that my normal is that it happens. It's unusual if it doesn't now. And I used to find the same as you. My kids used to get really excited Mummy, I'm going to come and meditate with you. I'm going to do some yoga. And it was kind of like, well, that's amazing, but this was my time. And I used to feel that kind of, despite I was doing all these great things and setting myself up mindset wise for a fantastic day, I then have this kind of irritation and frustration like you talked about. And the more I kind of realized that was causing some tension in me, I was like, well, come on, I've got to make this work. And they quickly learned, they either join in with me or they sort themselves out. And I think it's been a really good learning curve for them that I need my time. They're much better at saying they need their time. Sometimes they will meditate with me for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or they'll do some affirmations with me, which is amazing that my kids are then starting their day saying positive stuff about themselves. And yeah, I think that's great. And I'm really glad you've touched on that, that need to be flexible as a mum and not beat yourself up that you're not doing something, the routine you've set out to do every single day, because life happens.
Yeah, I think we get ourselves, or I found I got myself into a place where I felt like I couldn't, like it had to be right. I couldn't not have my shit together. Like it, and I kind of found myself warping my mind into believing that because it wasn't right, it was a bad thing. When actually, it is just life, and people are just people, and things happen. We have to embrace it and see the positives rather than the negatives.
So your journaling is very much stream of consciousness, is it? Is that what you're writing in your journal? Just literally anything that comes?
Yeah, so I'll just write about how I feel, what I feel like I need to do to. So if I'm feeling negative and I don't know why, I'll write about it, and I'll ask myself, right, okay, so is it this? Is it this? And I'll explore that within my writing.
And I know you've mentioned to me before that you changed some of your writing as you realized you wanted to write. You changed some of your journaling for writing time. So how did that come about, that transition?
Yeah, so at the beginning of 2017, I started writing my book, which was all about my life and my journey. And in the mornings, rather than the journaling, I'd just set myself a timer for 15 minutes and I'd just write. And I'd not even edit it, just write, and then just once the timer goes off, just leave it. I think I've got back to editing it now, but the book that we did last year came about, and so I kind of parked that for a little bit and just started writing in my notebook now. Rather than writing about my life, and rather than writing about the story of my life, and I'll write about how I feel in my life, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So we just had a comment from Erin. Hello, Erin. She says, I think it's been a stumbling block for me, because if I wake up, then the whole house is awake. When I wanted some quiet time to start the day, this has stopped me in the past, rather than finding a way to still make it happen around the children. I've been there too, Erin, and I'm sure Rebecca has. One of the things I started doing was I would have I'd have my headphones right by my bed, and I'd plug it into my phone, and I'd use an app, or now I use Materials and Inspiring Mummy Club because I know they're really good. And I plug it in and I meditate before I've even moved. For me, it was not only the children, but my animals, my pets would go nuts the minute I got out of bed. And so it was finding those ways around it. So I could do a meditation in bed, I could do a visualization in bed, I could think about my affirmations. I wouldn't say them out loud if Jeff, my husband, was lying next to me, but I'd make it work around me. And I think, Erin, it's about having that sort of more gentle and flexible approach to it. What would you say about that, Rebecca? What challenges have you come up against with your daughter waking up and being around when you wanted quiet time?
Completely. That is exactly what I do as well. So I'll wake up, I'll do my journaling, and then I'll put my earphones in and I'll listen to a guided meditation, or I'll listen to the audiobook that I'm listening to at the time. So yeah, definitely second to that.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so after you've done some journaling, what else happens for you? Oh no, I did want to just ask, when you've done your writing, what does it mean that early in the morning, before everything else goes on, what does it mean for you that you've done something creative at the start of your day? What does that mean?
It just feels like I've got everything out that needs to have got out. Like, so if I wake up feeling negative or feeling tired or feeling like there's something that I'm just not quite sure about, then I'll write about it, and then it feels like I've released that, and like it's packed, it's done, I can then move on with the rest of my day. Some days writing is the only thing that I get to do, but that's the one thing that I do every single day.
Yeah, and I would say for me, the journaling like that, I do every single day. There's an amazing book called The Artist's Way, which I encountered because I'm from an acting background. And if you've not read it, anyone listening, it is fantastic. There's so many exercises in there. And she talks about, doing this free floating writing, but doing for 3 pages and making yourself without fail get to the bottom of 3 pages. Because quite often you'll end up going, I haven't got anything to say today. And you're literally writing, haven't got anything to say. And this interesting point happens halfway through your writing that, the things that are really bothering you come out, and then you get a chance to explore it and unravel it. So for those of you who haven't read that, that's The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
I don't know if you found as well, Anna, that and it's only just crossed my mind now that previously I always felt like really busy, and like I always had things going on in my head, like, oh, I need to do that, or I need to do that, or what about that? And like you've just taught it to yourself about not only things that you need to do, but then other crap that just is irrelevant. And I found since doing the journaling, I don't have any of that.
Absolutely. It's like when it's out on paper, I feel that it's sort of dealt with. And I think if I then spot that 4, 5, 6 days in a row, I'm saying the same stuff, then that really highlights to my brain, that's something I need to work on. And it also, once that negative stuff is on paper, oh, I'm not good enough and I'm stupid, oh, I made a mess of this, or whatever those little thoughts that are literally stream of consciousness coming through, well, when I've seen them, I kind of think, God, that's really harsh. I can't believe I'm saying that about myself. And then that then has an effect on what I'm then thinking for the rest of the day, because I'm aware that that's not helpful. Okay, great. So we've done the journaling. First of all, what time do you get up? How much earlier are you getting up to get these things done?
So before I was pregnant, it was about 5:30. And then throughout the pregnancy, I just let myself get up when I woke up. And now I've kind of come to the last trimester where I feel really motivated again, but I'm not getting up at 5:30. It's usually between 6 and 7. It's just, just whenever.
Yeah. So for me, when I'm doing it full on and I'm making sure I do everything, which when I want to absolutely supercharge my business and other things in the house that need doing, and I know that I need to look after myself, then I will fully get up at 5:30. And I will leap out of bed and change clothes. I'll literally just
put
my exercise clothes straight in the bathroom. So there is no room for error. There's no room for me going, oh, I can't be bothered. However, the majority of the time I'm a lot more flexible with it. And at the moment I've been getting up at 6:05 and being a lot more kind of relaxed and chilled out. But I know that having that absolute 10 minutes on this, 10 minutes on that, 10 minutes on this, by the time I've done an hour of all these amazing motivational things in the morning, I am buzzing by the time the kids get woken up at 7:15.
I must admit, I am looking forward to being able to push myself back into that.
Yeah.
But again, at the same time, because it is like for you, isn't it? Like it is buzzing. Like it really makes you feel like you can take over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So after you've done your journaling, what comes next? So for you, is it meditation? Is that when you pop your earbuds in?
Yes, I'll put my earphones in. I'll listen to a guided meditation, something from Tony Robbins or Deepak Chopra. I love Deepak, or Gabrielle Bernstein.
Yeah, fabulous. And so do you ever do, so if you're listening to guided meditation, do you ever, we're going to talk about pressing snooze in a minute, Erin, because I think that's a really important mindset thing as well. Do you ever actually just take silence for yourself at that time of the morning? Or is that not really part of what you do?
Yeah, actually I've started doing that more recently than I have been putting the earphones in and doing the guided meditation. I tend to allocate a couple of days a week because I live in my apartment with the spa, and I go down to the spa, and that's when I've had my silence time and really check in with myself.
Yeah.
But usually I've got my daughter with me by this time in the morning, so the kind of the guided thing is kind
helpful.
of
keeps you on track.
She's got a tablet next to her, so instead of listening to like cartoons that she's watching, I'm listening to my guided meditation.
Okay, so what comes next for you? So you've got your meditation, you've done your journaling, you've got your meditation. What next?
So usually at the moment that's it. So that's all I've been doing at the moment. Previously, it would have been, oh, sorry, I'm lying. Even if it's just 30 seconds, I'll do the visualization. So I'll think about things that I want to achieve, and then I'll visualize myself having achieved them, and imagine my whole body experiencing the emotions as if I've already achieved it. Also at the moment I'm doing a lot of money around a lot of work around money and my money mindset and up leveling my income. That's been something that I've been quite anxious about recently because of going on maternity leave and having to take time out. Unconsciously my mind's been saying, oh no, what's going to happen? So I've just been imagining the flow of the universe and money, and I'm not a very woo-woo person, but that has had a massive impact on how I felt just in general.
Well, visualizations are hugely powerful on your subconscious mind, and the reason is that your subconscious, if you are visualizing something in your head and you're feeling the sensations of this great thing that you want to have, your subconscious mind is actually being geared up then to find other ways to confirm that that's right. It's all, your subconscious is always looking for ways to confirm your thoughts. So if you're saying to yourself, oh my goodness, for example, with money, I'm going to be skint and it's going to be a disaster, you're going to look for all the evidence in your life subconsciously to prove that. Whereas if you're doing a guided visualization, or a visualization just for yourself, where you're actually not just thinking it and seeing it in your own head, but feeling it in your body, those how happy you would feel, what it would be like when you have that moment, your subconscious is literally setting itself up to have that in your life. And whether that's a law of attraction thing that's going on, or whether it's just a more kind of chemical thing in your brain, I don't know. I think for me, I like to think there's something in between. But yeah, visualizing is a huge thing. It's one of the reasons when I was launching Inspiring Mummy Club, I wanted that to be really core, because so often we end up catastrophizing in our heads all the things that could go wrong. And when you understand a little bit more about what the brain does, and you understand that visualizing, which is deeply relaxing anyway and really pleasant, can actually have massive implications for the better in your life. Okay, good. So visualizations, what else? Do you ever do affirmations or anything like that in the morning?
No, I don't tend to. I just didn't resonate too much with affirmations. I did them in the beginning, but I never truly felt as though it really did it for me. So I didn't do them.
So when you were looking at things to do with your mindset and your blocks, as you talked about for money, what are you looking at there specifically?
Money and mindset. So I just about the feelings that I had. So when I'd be journaling, I'll be asking myself, why do I feel anxious about this? What is it that I need to do? What actions do I actually need to put in place myself to make myself release this tension? So do I need to know how much money I need to make? Do I need to change certain dates of certain bills? The actual things that you can control? Do I need to reach out to more clients? Do I need to make something in my business more passive? And then I've then taken action on, so after I journaled about it, I'll then put like a to-do list together. So like, okay, so today I need to work on an email automation series, which is passive, or I need to put together a workbook which I can then sell passively. So it's, I think the law of attraction then comes into it in the whole visualizing, because you then start to notice other opportunities. So I like a couple of weeks ago I was feeling really anxious, and then when I started to imagine and visualize the success and money coming to me, then I started to see so many more opportunities for money to come to me. And since then, money has come to me in so many more ways than it has done previously. And it is all, I think the law of attraction and manifestation and action all have a major part in that. But I think you've got to do the work behind it to put yourself in that place to kind of propel yourself to make it happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think an awareness that having lots of negative thoughts about, oh, I'm going to be skint and it's going to be hard and this is difficult and my day is going to be terrible and this is going to be a disaster, that really does impact your mental and emotional health. And so starting your day seeing things as positive and successful and going the way you want can actually shape what happens. So you're not quite at the stage where you're doing school runs.
No.
Preschool runs yet?
She's at nursery, Eva. Yeah.
So how do you think having time out for yourself in the morning alters or changes or affects how you are then getting ready to leave the house, interact with your daughter, and get on with the rest of your day? What do you think the difference is? Is there a difference?
Yeah, I think before I started doing things, I always felt really rushed and like really tense and really rushed. And like I say, I'd have all these things going on in my head. Whereas because of the first thing I do is get all them things out of my head, I just feel so much more relaxed and so much calmer, because it's really crazy how like we rush around and we put like feel, you know, or I did anyway, felt tense and anxious about doing things. And actually by just relaxing, nothing's changing. The time's not going to go any faster. What you're doing isn't going to change. You know, it's just the way that you feel. And so it is an option. Like you can let yourself feel tense and anxious and like you're in a rush all the time, or you can just not
just go with it. So it's making me think, coming back to Erin's, your comment about 7:45, when I have hit the snooze button repeatedly, I notice that my attitude towards the children and towards doing the school run and getting out of the house and getting breakfast done and all those morning things is terrible. And but conversely, when I have got up early and I've really invested time in myself, thought about the kind of thoughts I want to be having, the kind of mum I want to be, the feelings of gratitude for the things that I do have in my life, and visualize how I want my day to be, which is a form of planning, really, how all those little things are going to go. Because sometimes as a mum, your day can be really, really packed. So I know that when I have taken time for myself and I've not hit the snooze button or not hit it repeatedly, then my attitude is just much better. I'm more loving, I'm more kind, I'm more generous to my children. I'm much more forgiving if they are taking ages to get dressed or not getting dressed, which in turn, because of the way I speak to them, they're going to speak better back to me, and we don't get locked in that kind of dispute that I know happens often when I've hit the snooze button. Yeah. So go on, sorry.
Eva's 2 at the moment, so she's still quite young, and I'm sure if you ask me after I've had the baby, it might be a different story, or in 5 years when they are both at school. But at the moment, I have found I with the whole mummy, I don't want to wear them shoes. I want to take my socks off, and then doing a wee just as we're about to leave the door, like go out the door to nursery, like it can be frustrating and it's not easy. Like I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm perfect, because I'm not. And some days I don't have my shit together and I do feel like pulling my hair out.
But that's okay too, because that's human. Right?
Completely.
Nobody's perfect, and I think no one has it all together all the time. What we're kind of discussing is tools that can make things generally better.
But I do find the book by Mel Robbins, that is it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
5 second rule by Mel Robbins is incredible. If any of you haven't read it or haven't listened to the audiobook, it's amazing. So many things are going on for me. We've just launched my podcast is about to be launched because of that. And webinars, that's because of the 5 second rule. So we're getting lots of things coming through, Rebecca. I don't know if you can see them, so I'll read them out to you. So Erin says, I totally agree. I can spend my day chasing my tail. Something I've discovered is that my preparation definitely happens the night before. If I've gone to bed too late, the happy mornings are much less likely to happen. So I completely agree with that. A lot of this is in preparation. It's deciding that you're going to get up early. And if you don't have that decision and what you want to get done in that morning, it's really tempting to hit that snooze button. But if you're creating, oh my goodness, if I do this for myself tomorrow, this is how I'm going to feel. This is what can happen as a result. Then that can be really powerful. And actually, one of the things we've created for this month's Inspiring Mummy Club pack is a visualization that you do at night at bedtime, just as you are planning what clothes you're going to put on in the morning, because I literally lay my exercise clothes out. So I'm out of my pajamas. I'm out of that warm, snuggly feeling. Plan, you know, that I'm going to have a glass of water really early. I plan where my glasses are, where my notebooks are, where my phone is, where my earbuds are. All of that is part of the preparation. And if that doesn't happen, my morning isn't going to go quite the same. So what about you? Do you have to consciously plan anything, Rebecca, for your mornings?
So the thing about the Mel Robbins thing is, I mentioned that because I think it's all about making it a habit, isn't it? And I think because I've made it a habit now, I don't think about it anymore. I'm actually a proper night bird, so like I can be up until 1 o'clock in the morning working away, because I love what I do and I love just getting stuff done. And I struggle then to go to bed because
buzzing.
Yeah, I'm buzzing and I've got all these ideas going on and I've just been in that creative space. So I do listen to something as I'm falling asleep. It's usually guided meditation. And I'll check in with myself and ask myself what it is that I need to be listening to at the moment. So like I mentioned about the money thing. So I've been listening to money guided meditations recently. Or if it's the self-love thing. So if I find myself being quite negative towards myself, throughout the day, I'll listen to something like Self-Love by Deepak Chopra or something like that. Or if it's, you know, something else, then I'll just find a guided meditation based around that. But I'll ask myself what it is that I need to hear, and I'll just listen to that, and that'll help me fall asleep straight away.
So what do you feel that you have to, if you know you're going to get up early to do all the things you want to do you feel that you have to make yourself go to bed? Is there a particular time you aim for?
No, not really. I just go when I feel like it.
See, Jen's saying, well, what time do you go to bed? Her problem is she goes too late. Now, I used to find that I would stay up later and later and later doing mindless activities, watching rubbish TV. I'd have a glass of wine. I don't even know what I did. I was just faffing, and I'd go to bed later and later and later because that was the only way I could see that I was going to get any time for myself. My kids are a little bit older, so they don't go to bed early anymore. And I find now, because I get up earlier, not only do I want to go to bed because I know I'm going to have a great morning, but I don't have that feeling of I've done nothing for myself. I've achieved nothing because I've literally achieved it all before I wake the kids up at 7:15. I've done the journaling. I've looked after myself. I've done a little bit of yoga or breathing or whatever. And I've read something motivational. For me, I take just one chapter or 10 minutes of a chapter and read it then. So if I've done all that at the start of the day, I don't need to stay up and faff because I've had my time. And it makes me much pickier about the things that I watch on TV. I'm much more intentional about what I choose to kind of put into me. Although I do really love EastEnders, so that is a week I have to watch that. But I don't stay up just watching stuff for the sake of watching it anymore, because I know that I'm going to get up the next day and really look after myself and do things that have meaning and are much more purposeful. Okay, so you talked a little bit about you often listen to an audiobook in the morning. So what kind of things might you listen to? So at the moment, yes. Mel Robbins, we've talked about that one.
Yeah, so I don't actually watch any TV. And that's just, I think, like the prime of success thing. I've got into the really, really good habit for myself, because for me, my self-love and my creativity is through learning and developing. Like, my highest value is how can I grow? How can I be a better person today than I was yesterday? And for me, that transpires in like listening to the audiobooks, listening to a motivational YouTube clip. So my husband might be sat watching TV whilst I'm, working on something on the computer or reading a book. So I tend to, when I'm dropping my little girl off at nursery, I tend to listen to my audiobooks, which at the moment is the 4-Hour Work Week.
Oh, Tim Ferriss.
Yes, I love Tim Ferriss. Yeah. The way he thinks is just like incredible. He, for those of you who've not listened or heard of him, he's all about how to be the most productive in the least amount of time. And least effort.
Yes,
effort. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. So I'm listening to that at the moment. But then I'll also, like, I've got a YouTube playlist of like motivational clips of people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Will Smith, Jim Carrey, you know, and all them people, and Mel Robbins and Tony Robbins, and they all talk about how they think and how they've primed themselves for success. And I'm constantly feeding myself with that. Like, I don't listen to the radio, I don't watch the news, I don't just read any random book, I don't watch TV, and even films. Like, I just don't watch anything random. I'm very intentional about every single thing that I do in my life. And I think when I do then sit down to do something, I'm very productive in what I do, because I'm very intentional on what it is that I want to achieve, and that is to grow and be a better person for myself and for my family.
And do you ever incorporate any exercise in your mornings? I know a lot of people do, and they do know, so you don't. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I used to really struggle with the concept of exercising in general. And again, I would justify, I don't have enough time. My husband's out at work, and then he goes to a sports club a couple of nights a week. There's no time for me to do it. I work, and excuse. And I'd always thought about doing yoga, thought about it, went to a couple of classes. They were an hour long, and it was frankly too much. And so one of the things that I intentionally did when I started doing this Miracle Morning was just start with a 10-minute yoga video, literally starting at basics of just breathing to start with. And bit by bit, that's become a really crucial part of my day. I do stretch out, which, because I do a lot of voice recordings, tight, and using that time to connect with my body and stretch is good. And I also, then that guilt about not exercising enough is sort of gone, because now I guess it's about 15 minutes that I do every day of yoga, and my strength has got there. I'm not perfect, I'm not a yoga teacher, but I have used my body and connected with it a little bit more. I know when I first did when I first read The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and he talks about every morning do something to get the blood pumping. I literally, every morning I'd get up and I'd do like 10 minutes of like a Davina McCall exercise DVD, but I'd only do 10 minutes, so I'd only just ever done the warm-up, and then I stopped. But it really did get the adrenaline going and get my body alive, and that again changed the whole day, because you're not doing hours of exercise. You're not saying I have to go out and do this. It's not got to be a block of an hour or whatever out of the house, just making it happen at home. But yeah, again, that's something, the yoga for me is something that is one of the things that can slip if I don't have enough time. The journaling's hugely important for me, as is checking in with gratitude. Is that something you ever do? Gratitude? Or I know you're not keen on affirmations.
Yeah,
tell us about gratitude for you, what that means.
The gratitude, definitely. But before we move on from the exercise, I did try when I first started going to the gym, because where I live there is a gym here and a swimming pool, and I just, not that I didn't enjoy it, but I just didn't really. But what I do is I have been a dancer since I was about 5, and my daughter, every morning she wakes up and she's going, can we put dancing on, can we do exercise? Like, she wants me to put ballet on, she calls it exercise. And so before I was pregnant, I would put on a couple of tracks and dance with her in the morning, but I've let that go since
7 months pregnant.
Shocking SPD. So it's more about being able to walk rather than to move at the moment. But yeah, so gratitude, I incorporate that within my journaling. And any time throughout the day I ever feel myself being negative, because I do find myself being negative towards my husband in my head, not to him, but in my head I'm like, why is he not doing this, why is he not doing that? And we're both very different personalities. I'm very action oriented and do things really fast, and he's the complete opposite, so he'll read the instructions and do things a lot slower than I do, and it really frustrates me. But I never, obviously we never ever argue, because I don't ever say it out loud, I just do it in my own head. And so I find myself checking in with my gratitude. I feel bad all the time when I say that. I'm looking at pictures of him now in my office and I'm like, oh, I'm
sure there's lots of people listening who can identify with some of that.
Yeah, so in times like that, first of all, I'm like, what are you even doing, Rebecca? I'm having an argument with myself, with my husband in my head. And so I just remember that he is actually amazing, and really check in with all the reasons why I'm grateful for him, and why I'm grateful for the way my life is. So yeah, I do it in my journaling in the morning and then throughout the day, because I find myself getting into that negative pattern. So I check in with it then as well.
So I do it in the morning. I actually use a daily greatness journal. I don't know if you've come across them. They're fabulous. I'll have to put some pictures in the Inspiring Mummy Club Facebook group. I use that, and that's every morning. I kind of have to put 3 things I'm grateful for. And I try and do something different each day, because I could just go my home, my kids, my husband, and of course they crop up. But sometimes it's the little things, like someone smiled at me, or someone at the co-op was pleasant today, or it really made me smile when I got my feet muddy, or something, just little things that you kind of go, they're the small moments that really count. And I do it again at the end of the day, just as I'm going to bed, because I think sometimes you can go to bed and be like, oh, what a day, that this has happened, that's happened. Well, actually flip that on its, oh, this didn't go well, flip that on its head. What did go right for you? What made you feel like you were alive and you were a human, and that there was joy in the world? And that's something from time to time in Inspiring Mummy Club, in the Facebook group, that we do a check-in. I haven't done it for a little while, but I know that's really popular with people. Okay, so what do you think it means then for your relationship that you do use that gratitude?
Everything.
Survive.
Yeah, completely. I think as well, in the morning sometimes I'll switch up my visualizing my success to visualizing 3 events in my life that I am truly grateful for. So I'll take myself back to my wedding day, the birth of my daughter, the day he proposed, them kind of things that were big events in my life, and I'll take myself there as if I was there. And that really, really is so powerful, because it just completely switches the way that you're feeling and the way that you're thinking. So gratitude, definitely, it just, I think that is probably the number one thing, because even throughout the journaling and getting all that out, I then think to myself, what is it that I'm grateful for? And then I say thank you, whether it's to the universe or to God or whoever, whatever you believe in. I literally end my journaling with thank you, I'm grateful for this, this and this. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
How do you think that shapes the rest of your day?
It just puts me in a completely different space. Like, it just, rather than thinking of all the negative reasons, like you say, you're just thinking of all the reasons why you should be grateful and why you should be happy. Like you said, like the smallest of things, like I can hear the birds outside. It's really wet here today, and everyone I've spoken to this morning's been like, oh, it's so miserable, and I've just been like, yeah, I quite like the rain. I do like the rain. It helps the flowers grow.
Yeah, I think through mindfulness practice, that's something I've really become aware of, the small moments that actually really matter. They can seem inconsequential. You can almost not notice them if you're not looking for them, but they're the little bits that can kind of spark joy in your everyday life, particularly when you're busy, particularly when you're tired. So I want to just talk a little bit about, do you ever feel that getting up early to do these things makes you more tired? Wouldn't you be better off if you slept more in the morning?
No, I never, honestly. No, because I don't, because I don't get up at 5 in the morning at the moment, and I am quite relaxed with it. I just kind of sprinkle it in as and when it works with me at the moment, and that may just be due to the pregnancy, but I think it's just a good example of making it fit into your life.
Absolutely. And I think as a mum, that's really important.
I think there's a limit to like how late, because I mean, some days I don't need to go anywhere. I don't need to do anything. So yeah, I might not get up till 8 o'clock, but that's not really late or early. It's just, I don't need to get up any earlier than that. I don't need to get up any later than that. And then I just do the things when I get up and do them. And, that's just, I don't beat myself up over anything.
No, I don't beat myself up if I do decide to have some extra sleep. However, I know that my day is much better if I do look after myself first thing. And I want to go back a little bit to that hitting the snooze button. And one of the things for me was about, well, how great is it if you've got something you're really passionate about getting up and living that day? what does it mean if you want to hit the snooze button because you can't be bothered in your life? How's that going to then manifest itself throughout everything else you're doing? And when I thought about it like that, I was like, goodness, there has been a lot of times in my life where I couldn't be bothered, and I was exhausted, and I would tell myself all the time I was exhausted. And part of that exhaustion and frustration with life was that I wasn't doing the things that made me tick, that I felt really passionate about. And so making that decision, I am going to be really excited about my life. I am going to create things, whether it's businesses or the kind of home life I want, or just checking in with how I am and meditating and doing all that stuff. If I want that to be really important and a firm part of my life, then making the choice that I'm excited to get up really helps me when the alarm goes off. Doesn't mean it makes it easy. I mean, I still now have to put the alarm across the other side of the bedroom. And sometimes my husband moans a little bit about that because it's woken him too. Although now, after me, I've been doing it for years, now he does actually get up at the same time and he goes and exercises. He uses that as a time to do that for him, and he'll exercise for an hour then. But for years it was a kind of, you're disturbing the whole house. But I could see the benefits in the fact that I was looking after myself. What's interesting for me though is that when I have times where, life is hard and there's been some family crisis or whatever, often it's the first thing I will let go of. And yet they're the times I need those tools the most. I need the journaling, I need the meditation. And I can often sort of see myself going in this spiral where I stopped getting my thoughts out of myself and I'm just kind of locked in there. And I know then I have to start again. And that's when I really commit to doing a full miracle morning, which is what Hal Elrod talks about in his book, and that's the silence. He does he has an acronym, SAVERS. So S is silence, A is affirmations, V visualization, which we've talked about, E for exercise, R for reading, which is motivational material, which I, like Rebecca, instead of reading a chapter, I often put 10 minutes of an audiobook on. Sometimes while I'm in the shower, I listen to it. Yeah. So I've done that. And then S for scribing, which is of course the journaling. And I will go full on with that. And what I find when I do that for sort of 2 weeks or whatever, full on committing for an hour to do that, 10 minutes of each, or being, a little bit loose around that, is that it feels like there's not enough time. So sometimes I'll put the clock even earlier by 15 minutes and it will creep up just so that I've had that time and I've done all those things that make me feel energetic and alive and like I love my life. And it does really change things.
I think the biggest problem, and I think he mentions this in the book, the biggest problem that I found is that I was excited to get up the next morning, and that's when I started listening to the things to help me get to sleep then at night as well. Like, so excited to get up and just live life and like have a real hunger and thirst for life, because it really does completely put you in that space.
Absolutely, it does. And it can, that's why you can change your life by just getting up early and doing these things where you're looking after yourself. And one thing you mentioned earlier is that you don't always do it first thing. So if I know I've not meditated and journaled early, I will make sure I do it at some point just so that it's done, because it makes me feel so much better and more alive and more alert. So what about you? When else do you slot that in?
Yeah, just as and when, but I just want to touch on like how my life looked a little bit before I started doing this. So I went through a really bad stage for about 6 months when I had really bad postnatal depression. Like I said, I was diagnosed with the OCD, and then there was a stage where I was so exhausted all the time, and I felt so weak. I couldn't even pick my daughter up. She was 6 months old at the time. And like I couldn't get up out of bed, I couldn't move, and I just didn't understand what was wrong with me. Like I felt well, I felt okay, and I kept going back and forth to the doctors, and he kept just asking me if I wanted to take antidepressants and saying that we all go through stages like this in our life, and tell me that I was depressed. But I knew that I wasn't, and I knew that there was something else. And it was probably a good 6 to 8 months stage of my life where it just felt like it was such a spiral. Like I didn't know what to do. I just kept going to see this doctor, and that's all he kept saying to me. And he kept going, well, it could be what's it called? I've forgotten the word for it now. It could be where you really tight, not MS, ME. Is it ME? Could be ME, but we don't like to diagnose that. so we don't. And that's all they kept saying. And I was like pulling my hair out, like, what do I do? How do I deal with this? And so I started doing my own research, and found like the mindset stuff, and then also found the gluten links. And so that's when I had to make a choice. Like, I could either keep feeling the way I was feeling, or I had to make a change. And I had to make a change because couldn't even pick my daughter up when she was 6 months old. Couldn't walk down the steps. I couldn't get out of bed. At the weekend, I'd find myself stuck to the sofa because I just couldn't sit up. And I myself, and I'm sure as women we can resonate with this, like, we don't like to put our burdens on somebody else. So my husband didn't even realise how bad it actually was, because I didn't disclose that, because I didn't want him to worry. I didn't want to be weak. I didn't want anybody to know that I was struggling so much. And so it was at that point when I started doing the routine, and when I started doing the mindset stuff, and cut gluten out of my diet completely. And like, it was like literally overnight, like, it just made such a difference.
Amazing. It's really inspirational hearing you, how down you were, how dark things were, how ill you felt, to the success that you've created in a relatively short space of time. It is amazing, especially with a young child at home. We've just got time now for a few questions, if anyone out there wants to type anything. Let's see.
Yes, I can never say that word, but fibromyalgia. Yeah, like, you kept saying that it could be that, or it could be the ME or the MS, and yeah, it was awful.
Well, it was a similar thing for me. I mean, it was the mindset change that, I was in a wheelchair. I was told that was probably my future, but they didn't know. And well, what do you do with that? What do you do? And then, the depression is probably just going to come with it. Well, what if I don't want that to be the way I live my life? What if I want to feel that there's something I can do? And all of this mindset stuff, and particularly the mornings, were part of that journey for me, of taking back control, taking back my lust for life, my, re-engaging with the kind of energy I want to have and I naturally have, that just felt suppressed for whatever reason because of the stresses in my life. So any questions out there, anybody? I can see you're all still there. Somebody's typing. Okay. I love how powerful our mind is and the connection it has on our physical body. Absolutely. I mean, for me, had I not changed my mindset, I would still be disabled. I would still be having to ask people to help do the school run every day. I would still be feeling stuck. I would not have had the career I wanted. I wouldn't be the mum I wanted to be. I'd still be mum, but I'd be pretty miserable all the time. I mean, my kids would tell you I'm miserable quite a lot at the time anyway, because, we're not perfect. But things massively shifted for me because I started looking after myself. And I think that's really what you're talking about, Rebecca.
Yeah.
So, good. Is there anything you'd like to tell us before we start to wrap up about what it is you do and how you help people, and about your other businesses and things?
No, not really. There is one thing that I do want to spread the message to as many people as possible, and that is basically what we're talking about. Like I said, like previously, I suffered with my energy. I suffered with OCD, which was with repetitive thinking of harming myself, and I had serious postnatal depression. But when I made a choice that I wanted now to make myself a success and have all the things that I never believed I could have, and then made it happen. And so I just want to say to everyone, like, it is a choice. Like, you can make a choice that your time is now, and you can achieve anything that you want to achieve. There are literally no limits to what you can do and what you can achieve.
Absolutely, I'd wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, that's the whole reason I started Inspiring Mummy Club. And if you're looking at your life thinking, I don't have any time, well, what if you started with 5 minutes extra in the morning to do a 5-minute guided meditation? What if you started that with 10 minutes? What if you then crept it up? You would find the time, because we all have 24 hours. Yes, we have to sleep. But when you get yourself in that mindset space of looking after yourself, you'll be surprised to see the things you are doing that don't help you, and the things that you can open yourself up to trying that really might make a difference. So we've just got a couple of no questions, just looking forward to making some changes. Thank you both so much. It's been incredibly inspirational. That's very nice to hear. Great. So I just want to mention again, Rebecca's book, She Made It Happen, is on Amazon, that she's co-authored. And also Rebecca runs her Success Tribe, which is a mindset group for women. Similar but not the same as Inspiring Mummy Club. We do have some synergy, I think. And so I'll be posting all those links as well when this video goes up. I've just got a question somewhere, so I'm just going to see. Have you got any tips on the best way to introduce this positivity to others suffering with depression? I think one of the things is people have to almost find it for themselves. You can suggest, you can't make. One way I would maybe recommend is, for me, when I first started doing Miracle Mornings, I had an accountability partner, a couple of us actually. We check in every morning on Facebook. And that's one thing I did mean to mention. On Monday coming, we're going to start a 7-day morning routine that I'm going to be posting in the morning, and we'll all check in, those of us who are doing it, and then at night we'll check in that we've prepped everything, so we can give it a go. So you can bring someone to Inspiring Mummy Club, and every so often we'll be running this challenge. So that's maybe one way to do it, Rachel. But I think you cannot make somebody else make these changes. You can lead by example, and people will model the things that you're doing and saying and speaking about. If you are positive and intentional in your own behaviors, it does rub off on people, because who you hang around with matters. So be the kind of person you want to energize and be around yourself, and it's interesting how that might help people. But if someone's really depressed, they cannot reach that point until they're ready. All you can do is provide the know-how, the tools and the support for when they are ready to make that change for themselves, and let them know that there's things out around there like her Success Tribe and Inspiring Mummy Club, because not everybody does, not everyone's encountered that yet. That's not come into their lives yet. And how much better would it be if they were able to open up because they knew that help was there? And you don't always have to get medication. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there are other routes to try as well, which obviously for both Rebecca and I have massively worked. Okay, good. So thank you very much, Rebecca, for joining us. It's been really interesting. And I think also talking to another fellow mum who, you know, you've taken the kind of morning routine thing and done it in quite a prescriptive way to start with, and then adjusted it and been flexible with your life and with your routines and with your own daughter. And it's been interesting to hear what that's meant for your life and the things you've gone on to achieve. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing. And anyone listening, the Inspiring Mummy Club, if you're a member at the moment, our featured content at the moment is all about creating your own morning routine. So maybe you don't feel you've got an hour, but maybe you've got a few minutes you could do. And maybe if you went through that workbook, you'd be able to see and pick and choose the things that really appeal to you and how that you might be able to take those incremental steps to make that happen. There's also the hypnosis track, which is about morning beliefs, what you believe about your mornings and how that affects your subconscious and what that means for how you're kind of programming yourself at the moment to behave. And the hypnosis is just 15 minutes, and it can really shape how you then feel about getting up, and obviously a really good tie-in for what we're doing. So great. We're going to sign off now. So massive thanks to Rebecca, and thank you to all of you for coming to our first live webinar. I hope you've enjoyed it. There's obviously lots more to come. And yeah, thank you, Rebecca. Really, really great.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Great, and I'll put all of Rebecca's links and things up when this goes into the members content area. Fabulous. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. And that's it from us. Take care.